Last time on Guns and Glitter, Grace rescued some women from a sex trade operation. Then she stole drugs from the basement where she and her friend were almost kidnapped. They took the women home to take care of them. Welcome to CC Writes. My name is CC Lepki, and today I am sharing episode 15 in my story, Guns and Glitter. There were news stories that popped up every now and then about criminals who got caught for doing something stupid, like Googling how to get rid of a dead body or where to buy poison. Growing up, Grace always remembered poking fun at the idiots who would do something so obvious. Even so, the temptation was there. All of her business classes taught about the importance of market research when coming up with new products or entering into a new field. But she couldn't exactly put out a survey on the street that asked people how likely they were to buy drugs or how much they'd be willing to pay for a good high. She couldn't look up other drug dealers in her area to see how much they charged for their wares. It was impossible to know if her product was any good. When it came down to it, Grace didn't know anything about drugs or how they were sold. She would have to figure things out as she went along. Her second problem was supply. Helen was right that money would only last them a short while. With no supplier, her business wasn't sustainable. Grace chewed on the corner of her lip as she considered how she could make it work in her favor. No solid answers came to mind. Actually selling the drugs to begin with was her first hurdle. The rest would have to be dealt with later. Grace wore a surgical mask and dishwashing gloves as she spooned the powdery white drug into the tiny bags. In high school, she remembered all the kids talking about dime bags, so she weighed each little baggie up to 10 grams. She measured out 30 baggies, then packed everything up for the night. If the strip club taught her anything, it was that the front end of business was always slow to start out with. Clients needed to be wooed before they became regulars. There was no need to waste her time measuring out a whole kilo of cocaine if she couldn't sell it all. She yawned and looked out the window of the bathroom of Kira's motel room. Sunlight just barely lightened the edge of the horizon. The other women were all asleep, huddled together on the bed, surrounded by bags of takeout. As promised, Kira bought Tina her own bucket of ice cream. It sat forgotten on the side table, half melted. Grace carefully tucked it into the tiny mini fridge next to the bathroom, then tidied up the bags of food and trash that littered the floor around the bed. Grace, shut up and go to bed. Kira poked her head out from under the blanket and glared. Sorry, just cleaning. It's clean enough. Sleep, like a normal person. Grace smiled and nodded. The bed was full up with the tangle of women, so she tugged a spare blanket out of the closet and curled up underneath it on the hard floor. The next few nights at the club kept Grace busy enough that she wasn't able to try and do anything about the drugs that remained hidden in her duffel bag at the bottom of Kira's closet. Kira and Grace managed to convince Nilsson to hire Helen to replace Blossom. Between the three of them, it was easy to keep everyone fed and housed in the filthy motel. Grace split her money between taking care of the women she rescued and paying off her family's debts. She would have to figure out what to do about the drugs soon. They still had to find a way to get Anna to see a therapist. Eventually, she would have to leave the motel instead of staying hidden away forever. As things were, the women were just managing to get by. Finally, Grace had a couple days off of work. She told the girl she was heading out to find more work, and fished the dime bag she prepared out of the closet. There was only one area in downtown Esperanza that she thought might work as a place to sell the drugs. It was a rougher part of town, with a few gangs that had connections to Mexican cartels just across the border to the west of Esperanza. Technically, Esperanza was in Texas, but part of the city was across the border into Mexico. Throughout history, Esperanza's dominion was disputed and fought over, until a wall was built across a section of the city to separate Esperanza, Texas, from Esperanza, Mexico. The wall was more of a ceremonial partition rather than an effective tool to stop illegal immigration. But it made the rich white people feel better, and in the end everyone agreed that a security blanket wasn't worth fighting over. So they built the wall. Everyone patted themselves on the back for a job expensively done, and Mexican gangs continued clashing with American gangs in the streets, where the only people who got hurt were the poor and disadvantaged. Life as usual. Grace approached the Devil's Wall, as the people of Esperanza called it, with a purse full of cocaine and no clue how she would make use of her wares. The black barbed wire topped fence was tagged with images of demons, swastikas, and other hate symbols. Occasionally, some good Samaritan tried to cover up the worst of the images with beautifully rendered scenes of peace, large food items, or political commentary. Then the trolls came back and slapped their ugly, racist bullshit right back on top of the beautiful pictures, because nothing is sacred to evil people. Grace hated the wall, and the people who wrote their hatred on the wall, and the people who let them get away with writing out their hatred for all to see. Sometimes Grace hated people as a whole for letting things get as horrible as it was. Other times, she hated God for the same reason. It was dangerous to walk into gang-controlled territory. Every movie she'd ever watched said she should probably figure out who the kingpin of the area was and ask for permission to sell the drugs. But she'd stolen the drugs from men she'd killed who probably were employed by whatever kingpin ruled Esperanza. So maybe that wasn't a great idea. It was also not a good idea to rely on movies as her primary source of information on how to be a gangsta. Near the base of the Devil's Wall, she watched people come and go along the street. There was a large number of young Hispanic men sporting too many tattoos and showing off their boxers on the top of their pants. These were not the kind of men that Grace felt comfortable approaching, so she waited a while longer. People in layered street clothes, carrying backpacks or pushing carts overladen with cans and plastic bags, littered the streets in this area. The city had a major homelessness problem that was largely ignored because of the drug problem, the gang problem, the infectious disease problem, and a host of other issues that everyone complained about but nobody ever actually did anything to solve. Apart from the homeless and the obvious gang members, the odd, rich white college kid wandered into the neighborhood, only to get approached by people in hoodies who shook hands with the kids for way too long and walked away carrying fat wads of cash. "You a cop?" Grace jumped and spun around to find a thin, homeless man with a thin beard and several facial sores leaning on a wall behind her. His eyes were the telltale yellow that said his liver was in as bad a shape as the rest of him. "If you're a cop, you have to say. It's the law." He eyed her suspiciously. "I actually don't think that's true." Grace held her purse close to her side and watched him with the same level of suspicion he leveled at her. "But no, I'm not a cop." That's what a cop would say. It's also what someone who's not a cop would say. The homeless man nodded thoughtfully. "Yeah, that's true too." "So how do I know you're not a cop?" Grace shrugged. I guess you'll have to take my word for it. The man grunted. I'm not a cop either, in case you were wondering. That's nice. She tried to find a reason to walk away, but the man walked up next to her like he expected a long conversation. His clothes were frayed, and he wore fingerless gloves despite the heat of the day. Why are you watching those people? You look a little prim for a drug addict. Grace looked down at her tidy jeans and black hoodie that covered up a silk tank top. I look prim? The man shrugged. More prim than the people who usually come out this way. Especially for a woman. I usually only see desperate women come out this far. Maybe I'm desperate. Maybe you're a cop.
I hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to check it out from the beginning, then there's a link in the description below. And if you'd like to check out more of my work, you can find my books on Amazon.com by searching CC Lepki. There are also links to those below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification button so you'll know when the next episode comes out. Thanks for watching. See you later.